On my recent podcast where I spoke about Half-Life Alyx, the new VR Half-Life game, I saw some comments from people who were not happy about this game being VR. And I totally understand that. If you don't have a VR headset, you can't afford it, you're just not interested, whatever. I can understand why you might be disappointed that the latest Half-Life installation is going to be a VR game. I do get that. But I did see a number of people say things along the lines of, well, I'd consider VR if I didn't have to stand. I mean, why can't I just sit in VR and play with a mouse and keyboard? If they made the game so they didn't need those controllers and I could play with a mouse and keyboard sat at my desk, I'd think about playing VR. And to those people, I've just got to say, get off your lazy... I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I know the reason people want to sit at their desk with mouse and keyboard and play the VR game has nothing to do with laziness. I totally get it, because I was the same until I actually got a VR headset. So that's what I want to talk about in this video. I'm not actually calling anyone lazy, although I am serious that if you want to go VR, you probably should get used to the idea of standing, and I'm also going to say to you that it's a good thing for a variety of reasons. But as I said, I do totally understand why you might want to play that way, because that's exactly what I wanted. I envisaged when I got the Oculus that I would sit at my desk playing Skyrim with a headset on and just be able to see the entire world while playing exactly the same way, because that's the way I'm comfortable playing. And it's mostly because I hadn't really given it much thought, although I suspect had I given it much thought, I probably still would not have wanted something different, because it's one thing to imagine VR and it's another thing to experience it. And I have to say, trying to play a game where you're playing a character who's standing while you're sat down is actually a little strange. It feels odd. Now, it's weird because I play Skyrim or I'll play a Fallout game and I'm sat down using my mouse and keyboard and I feel perfectly at home. I project my mind into the protagonist's head and I control the protagonist and I sort of imagine I'm there. For some reason, when I play VR, if I sit while my character is standing, it's really odd. You'd think I'd be used to it, but it just feels very different in VR. As soon as I stand up, it all feels a lot more natural. It feels, well, I'm going to use the word because it feels more immersive. It just feels right. I cannot explain it any better than that. Obviously, for a game that's like a flight sim or a driving game, sitting is better because your character in game, so to speak, is sitting, so it feels right. But when you're playing a game where you're standing, actually standing feels better. But it's not just about immersion, it's also about comfort, and I'm specifically talking about the comfort you feel when playing a virtual reality game. As most of you probably already know, motion sickness is actually a very real problem in virtual reality games, and developers have to do quite a lot to try and minimize the effects of that. But I can tell you right now, standing alleviates the problem, well, a hell of a lot actually. It's not just a little difference. If I sit at my computer and I try to play a VR game, especially if I use something like a mouse and keyboard or even an Xbox controller, I will feel way more nausea than I would feel if I was stood using the touch controllers. You see, the problem with moving in VR is the movement of your character may not always match the movement you feel in real life. So for example, if I use the controller to move forward, my character is moving forward, you can see it but I am not moving in real life. I'm stood still, and that can cause nausea for people. I'm completely used to it now. I can do this for several hours and it will not cause me a problem. I could also use this controller to turn. I'm going to turn to the left. And again, I'm not turning. I'm using this controller to turn the character. That I find a little more, not nauseating, but uncomfortable. And that is because the sort of movement involved there is actually quite aggressive, and it does not match what is happening to me in real life. When standing, I don't need to do that. I can just shuffle on the spot and turn around. I can do, full 360-degree turns, and I can do what I like. I can also move a little bit if I want to move towards the doghouse a little bit, or I want to move over here. I've got a little range of movement. This is kind of useful if I'm trying to do something. So if I'm just going to move around, use the chemistry station, use the chemistry teacher, and then, do something else, I don't need to use the in-game controllers to move. And that actually helps, especially when looting or doing other things. Generally speaking, being able to stand helps with the turning, but also even moving forwards and backwards. If I was sat now, I would feel this a lot more, because there's something weird about moving like this, yet knowing you're sat. If the movement felt like I was in a car, it probably wouldn't feel bad. But another trick I also have found, especially when going up uneven surfaces, is if I step from, I'm going to stop now, if I step from side to side like this, just a little when I move, I actually can feel a lot better, even if I'm running. So I move with my feet a little bit, and I don't feel the same sort of discomfort I might otherwise. In actual fact, I'm so used to this now, I don't really need to do that anymore. But it is an option. And in general, just moving around in a VR game while standing like this is much more comfortable. It feels better. It feels more immersive. I'm stood here, and I feel like I'm stood on this road. But I feel like I'm stood, and I cannot explain it. When you're playing a normal, what I call pancake game, you don't feel this disconnect between what you feel in real life, sat at your chair, and what your character's doing. In VR, you do. You feel that disconnect far more. So this is more immersive, and it is far more comfortable. Plus, it's probably a lot healthier, especially if you do things like melee combat, because you can actually get quite a good workout if you're swinging a big weapon around, hitting things. I do not recommend doing that unless you have the space to do so, though. You do need a lot of space. I have come close to putting myself in hospital a number of times, as people on streams will attest. I do not have the room to do that here, which is a shame, because you can actually get a mild sweat going. It feels like you've gone for a long walk or something, get a bit of blood flowing in the shoulders. It's just generally a healthier way to play a computer game. But more importantly, it is more comfortable and much more immersive. Now, I suspect at this point there are some people who are thinking, yeah, but I'm afraid I am a mouse and keyboard user through and through. I can't play games with controllers. I really am only comfortable when mouse and keyboarding. Yes, it's now a verb. And I totally understand that thinking, because I was the same way. I really cannot play games with things like the Xbox controller. I'm useless at it. I am 1,000 times better with a mouse and keyboard. Way more comfortable. However, if you try to use a mouse and keyboard to play a game like Skyrim or Fallout 4, you are doing yourself a disservice by not using the touch controllers. I can't show you the other one in Fallout 4 because I've got my Pip-Boy. I could do it if I wore my power armor. Maybe I will actually do that. That is probably a good idea. Then you can actually you can see the other controller. Right. Playing VR games with controllers like this is much more fun. It is actually much more immersive as well because you can use your controllers to pick things up. It's like, it's strange, but I could run past a bush if I hadn't already picked all of the flowers from them, and pick a flower from a bush as I pass it. So let's say there was a flower on that bush. I could actually hold my controller to the side, and as I feel the force feedback go, just click it and pick up the item without even looking. It's difficult to explain how cool that is. It really is difficult to explain how natural it also feels. But when it comes to aiming, I know as a mouse user, you're so used to just being able to flick your hand and aim. That just does not work well in VR. I have tried a number of games where I controlled my aim using the mouse, and it is not just nauseating, it is, I mean, it put me out of action for a while. I had to take the headset off and just go and sit down and hold my head for a while. It was horrible. But it also doesn't feel very good. Whereas aiming in VR with these controllers is phenomenal. It just feels so natural. But it also gives you control that you just couldn't have in a normal pancake game. In a normal pancake game, you're sort of used to, well, I suppose you're used to having the weapon here, and then when you aim, no, it's usually like that, isn't it? And then you aim and it goes like this sort of thing, right? If you were to have a mouse and keyboard control this, you would need the weapon to be held there, and then you'd move the mouse and the weapon would go like this, and then up and then down, and you'd have to look at it. Because of course your head has free look. So you're not always looking where the gun is. Or the game would have to lock the weapon to be essentially right dead center screen. So if you did look around, if you looked around, you'd just be like this the whole time, which I can tell you in VR feels really, really weird. Feels really uncomfortable for long periods. Because it's much more instinctive and much more fun to just pull the weapon up and aim, pull the weapon up and shoot. It's just... It is an incredible feeling. In fact, it's 95% of the reason I love Fallout 4 in VR. You know, when you get attacked by a couple of ghouls and maybe one's running towards you here and one's running there, and as they get close, you go into bullet time, and you shoot one there. You know, you shoot one ghoul and you see him start to do a somersault. And you look up at the shell as it flies over your head, but you can sense the guy coming here, but you're still fascinated by that shell, and at the last moment you just turn around, you barely even glance, you shoot at the next one, you're still looking at the casing, there's a body somersaulting here, there's a ghoul with his head exploding here in slow motion, and you just drop the bullet time, turn away, don't even look, because you are a bona fide badass. It feels incredible. It really does. It doesn't seem to matter which weapon I use. You know, I can switch to fully automatic weapons and just be like shooting things, and it feels amazing. You definitely play a bit more gung-ho. You know, you just start running around, especially if you're wearing power armor, running straight up to people and shooting them in the face and things like that. It feels awesome. And if you're trying to do that with a mouse and keyboard, it's you're going to be controlling the arm using the mouse, I guess, and it's not going to feel natural, and it's not going to feel cool, and you're missing a big part of what makes VR gaming fun. And this is going to be true of things that are not even shooters. So if a game uses your hands to manipulate things, like the Half-Life Alex game looks like it's going to, if you're going to be doing things, if you're playing Skyrim and you've got spells and you're throwing spells or you're shooting a bow, it feels so cool to do it with the controllers. It feels so cool. So basically, standing in VR is more immersive, it's more comfortable, and it is hands down way more cool. It just, I mean, just in every possible way, from being able to sort of get towards the edge, peek around, see someone, and actually shoot. Sorry! I didn't know you were walking there. There you go. So you can shoot people. You don't even need... Let me just double check there's no one here. You don't even need to see... If there's someone there and they've been shooting at you, you can actually do that. Probably really not good for your wrist. I'm in power armor. Shut up and leave me alone. I can do that. You can shoot under your own arm. I've got my arm above me here. I can shoot under my arm backwards, you know. I could do trick shots.
Oh, man. I always wanted to say that.
I have no idea what he just said. You know, it's just so much cooler. And the movement is so much more instinctive. So much more pleasant. However, I know some people are going to be unconvinced. And there may even be people who actually play VR games like Skyrim and Fallout 4 who don't stand. They do sit at their desk, they do play with mouse and keyboard, and they do use the mouse to look left and right, or they use a game controller and they use the whole thumbstick to move, to turn. There may be people who do that, and they may prefer it. What I'm saying is if you're one of those people who's holding out on VR, you want to try it, but you've seen games like Half-Life Alyx, and you can see that it was designed for a standing experience, one way we would use a controller like this, and you're thinking, nope, I'm going to wait until games like this come out with better mouse keyboard support. I'm asking you to rethink. Think about finding a friend or a showroom somewhere that's showing VR, a type of game that you would like to play in VR, and go and try it. Go and try it. Go try Fallout 4. Find some ghouls, shoot them up, play Skyrim, go get some bandits and hack them to pieces with a sword or shoot them with a bow or blast fire at them from your hand. Do it using the controller standing and see if you like it. I don't want to use the whole green eggs and ham argument here, but you don't know until you try it. And I'm telling you that from experience. I, too, imagined playing VR with a mouse and keyboard sat at my desk. Now, I could not imagine playing a game like this any other way than standing with controllers in my hand, laughing like a maniac as I blow things to pieces.